The wind was dry and carried the taste of dust. Aaron walked slowly across the broken ground, his boots pressing into cracked soil that once had been farmland. The sky above was pale gray, hiding the sun behind a curtain of ash. Nothing moved except him. The land was quiet, too quiet, and that silence made him uneasy. He had learned that silence on this planet often meant danger. Aaron carried a small pack on his back, and inside it were the things that kept him alive. 2 small water flasks. 3 ration bars. A light lamp. A knife. He had learned how to survive by counting every item, using every bit carefully, never wasting. Out here, nothing could be replaced. If he lost food, he would starve. If he lost water, he would die. He stopped by the ruins of a broken wall and looked at the remains of what once might have been a marketplace. Stones were scattered, metal frames bent, stalls empty. Once, people must have traded here, calling out their goods, smiling at one another. Now it was silent, only the sound of wind scratching against stone. Aaron sighed, shifted the strap of his pack, and kept moving. For 3 days, he had searched these ruins. He found little more than scraps, a broken container, a ruined jacket, some half-burned papers in a language he could not read. He had almost given up, but something in him told him to push a little further. Humans were stubborn, and Aaron was no different. As he walked, he noticed a faint trail leading away from the market. It was not a road, not anymore. The ground was broken, but there were marks on the soil. They looked like footprints, though not human ones. Smaller, wider, with 3 toes instead of 5. He crouched down, touching the mark with his hand. It was fresh. Whoever left it had passed recently. Aaron stood again, his eyes scanning the distance. The trail led toward a dark opening in the hills, where an old tunnel mouth yawned like the entrance of a cave. Something inside him warned him not to go. Tunnels were dangerous. Bandits, wild creatures, or worse could hide there. But the footprints told another story. Whoever left them was not strong. The steps were uneven, as if the walker had stumbled, as if they were weak. His throat was dry, and his stomach hurt with hunger, but curiosity pushed him forward. He adjusted his pack and walked toward the tunnel. The air grew cooler as he stepped inside. The light from outside faded, replaced by shadows that stretched across the walls. Aaron pulled his lamp from the pack and lit it. A small circle of pale light formed around him, showing stone walls lined with roots and cracks. The tunnel smelled damp, and drops of water clung to the ceiling, falling with soft sounds that echoed in the silence. He moved carefully, his knife in one hand, lamp in the other. His boots crunched softly on the stone floor. The trail of footprints continued ahead, sometimes smeared, sometimes clear. He followed them deeper and deeper until the tunnel opened into a wide chamber. There he froze. In the center of the chamber, huddled against the wall, was a figure. At first, Aaron thought it was a shadow, but then it moved. The lamp revealed a shape bent low, thin and trembling. The figure had arms, legs, a head, but it was not human. Its skin was pale silver, stretched thin over its bones. Its eyes were large and glowed faintly in the dim light. Around it, 2 smaller figures clung close, their bodies weaker, smaller, their eyes closed. The figure looked up at him. Its lips parted, and a voice, weak and strained, filled the chamber. "Please, help us." Aaron tightened his grip on the knife. His first thought was danger. He had met aliens before, and not all were kind. Some saw humans as prey. Some saw them as enemies. But this one was different. Its voice shook, carrying more pain than threat. The figure tried to rise but collapsed back against the wall. Its arms wrapped around the two smaller ones. The children. My children, it whispered. They have not eaten for days. Feed them, and I will be yours forever. The words echoed in the chamber, bouncing against the stone walls until they faded into silence. Aaron's chest tightened. He looked at the two small ones, their faces weak and pale, their breaths shallow. Hunger had carved deep lines into their skin. He looked at his pack. 3 ration bars. Enough for maybe 3 days if he stretched them. If he gave them away, what would be left for him? His mind filled with voices from his past. Training officers had told him never to share supplies. Survival meant putting yourself first. If you fed others, you starved. If you gave water, you died of thirst. He had repeated those rules in his mind every day. They had kept him alive. But as he looked at the children, he saw something else. He remembered another place, long ago, on a world far from here. He remembered hungry faces, human faces, during the early wars. He remembered mothers holding children close, hoping for mercy. He remembered when someone had shared with him, once, when he had nothing left. That memory burned brighter than the cold rule of survival. Aaron stepped closer. The alien mother's eyes widened with fear, but he slowly lowered his knife and crouched near her. He opened his pack, pulled out 1 ration bar, and unwrapped it. The children stirred, their eyes opening just a little. Aaron broke the bar into small pieces and held them out. The mother took them with shaking hands and placed them gently in her children's mouths. They chewed slowly, their weak bodies struggling but not giving up. Aaron watched in silence. Something inside him shifted. He had thought of himself as a survivor, alone and strong only by keeping everything close. But now, watching the children eat, he realized strength was not only about holding on. Sometimes, strength was about giving. The mother looked at him with wide eyes. A single tear slid down her cheek. She lowered her head, pressing it to the ground in front of him. You gave life to my children, she whispered. I will never forget. From this day, I belong to you. Aaron felt uncomfortable at her words. He had not done this for loyalty or reward. He had done it because it was right. But he said nothing. Instead, he stood slowly, his lamp casting a soft glow on the chamber. The children leaned against their mother, their breaths a little stronger now. He thought of leaving, but he knew he could not. Something bound him here now, invisible but strong. He had given food, but more than that, he had given hope. The chamber was still. Aaron stood with the lamp in his hand, watching the mother and her children eat slowly. The faint glow of their eyes caught the light, reflecting hunger and relief together. Every small bite seemed to bring them back from the edge of weakness. The mother leaned against the wall, her breathing heavy but calmer now. Her voice was soft, almost like wind slipping through cracks in stone. You shared food, she said. No one else would. I thought we were forgotten. Aaron said nothing at first. He adjusted the strap of his pack, feeling the lighter weight inside. His mind kept counting, 2 ration bars left, just enough for himself if he stretched them carefully. Now, with 3 mouths to feed, the numbers were wrong. His training whispered in his head again. Numbers did not lie. Share too much, and death would follow. But another part of him remembered the look in those children's eyes. They had not begged. They had not spoken. They had only clung to life with silent strength. Something about that silence reminded him of his own childhood, the long years when survival depended not on words but on patience and endurance. He crouched down near the mother. "What is your name?" She blinked, surprised by the question. Her thin lips moved slowly. "Myra," she whispered. "My children are Rin and Lyra." The children stirred at the sound of their names. Rin, the older one, leaned against his mother's side, his chest rising and falling with more strength now. Lyra, smaller and frilier, clutched her mother's arm and stared at Aaron with wide silver eyes. Aaron nodded once. "I am Aaron," he said simply. Myra repeated the name quietly, as if testing the sound. Then she lowered her head again. "Aaron," she said. "You saved us. I will give you what I can. I will guide you. I will be yours forever if you ask it." Her words echoed in his ears. He had not asked for loyalty, and the thought of owning another being unsettled him. Humans had fought long wars to escape chains, to live free. Yet he understood her meaning. For Myra, offering herself was not submission. It was gratitude, a bond she could not repay in any other way. Aaron shook his head slowly. "I do not need ownership. What I need is trust. If you wish to walk with me, then walk. If not, then I will leave." Myra looked at him with confusion. "You would leave us? After giving food?" "I gave because it was right," Aaron said. "Not because I wanted a servant." For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then Myra nodded slowly, as if understanding something new about this human. Her children leaned closer to her, safe for the first time in days. Aaron stood again, lifting the lamp higher to study the chamber. It was wide but not safe. The walls carried cracks that could collapse at any time. The air smelled of damp stone and mold. Staying here too long would be dangerous. He turned back to Myra. "This place is not safe," he said. "Do you know other paths?" Myra closed her eyes, her mind searching through memory. "Yes. There are tunnels deeper below. My people used them long ago. Some lead to old storage places. Food, water, may be still there." Aaron felt a spark of hope. Supplies hidden by locals could mean survival. He crouched beside her again. "Can you walk?" Her legs trembled as she tried to rise. She leaned on the wall, pulling her children close. Rin helped steady her, though he was weak himself. Aaron moved forward and offered his arm. Myra hesitated, then accepted, her silver fingers gripping his sleeve. Together, they stood. The children clung to their mother, watching Aaron with uncertain eyes. He could see the trust forming slowly, like a fire beginning with sparks. They moved through the tunnel, Aaron leading with his lamp. The air grew colder, but the darkness seemed less heavy with voices beside him. Myra guided them with quiet directions, pointing to paths that twisted and bent like veins through stone. At times, Aaron thought they were lost, but her memory proved strong. She had lived here long enough to know each turn, each hidden corner. Hours passed. Aaron shared small sips of water, enough to keep the children steady. He drank last, as always. Myra noticed but said nothing. She only watched him with silent respect. Finally, they reached a narrow tunnel that ended in a sealed metal door. Dust covered its surface, but faint marks showed where it had been opened long ago. Myra touched the door with her hand. "This was a storage place," she whispered. "Maybe still is." Aaron studied the lock. Rust clung to it, but the mechanism was simple. He pulled his knife, wedged it into the crack, and forced it open with steady pressure. The metal groaned, and at last the door creaked wide. Inside, his lamp revealed shelves lined with containers. Most were broken or empty, but some still held sealed packs. Aaron stepped forward, checking carefully. He opened one and found dried food inside. Another held clean water in strong containers. Relief filled him like a wave. He turned back to Myra. "You were right." Her eyes glowed brighter now, filled with both gratitude and disbelief. She moved inside with her children, touching the containers as if afraid they would vanish. Rin smiled weakly for the first time, and Lyra's small hands clapped once in joy. They ate again, this time not just scraps but enough to feel whole. Myra herself ate slowly, savoring every bite as if each piece carried a memory of hope. Aaron allowed himself a portion, careful not to take too much. His mind still counted, still planned, but his chest felt lighter knowing there was more than before. When they finished, Myra turned to him. "You gave first when you had nothing. Now we find more because of you. I owe you more than life. I owe you my path, my strength, and all that I am." Aaron looked at her, his face calm. "Then give me your honesty. That is enough." She lowered her head in agreement. For her, honesty was not a small gift. It was trust, the deepest promise her kind could give. That night, they stayed inside the storage chamber. Aaron kept watch at the door, his knife in hand, while Myra and the children slept for the first time in days without fear. The sound of their breathing filled the quiet space, steady and gentle. Aaron sat in the shadows, his eyes on the tunnel beyond. His thoughts drifted. He had begun this journey alone, carrying only enough for himself. Now he was no longer alone. He felt the weight of that choice, but also its meaning. Humans were not meant to live only for themselves. They were meant to build bonds, even across species, even in ruins. As the hours passed, Aaron remained still, guarding not only his survival but theirs. He understood now that every step forward would not just be for him. It would be for Myra, for Rin, for Lyra. And though the galaxy was wide and cold, in that dark chamber beneath the ruined world, a fragile bond had begun to grow stronger than hunger, stronger than fear. The old storage chamber became a temporary shelter. The shelves were mostly empty, but the few packs of food and clean water inside gave Aaron and Myra a small chance to rest without fear of starvation. For the first time in many nights, the children did not cry themselves to sleep. Their small breaths echoed softly in the still air. Aaron sat near the doorway, lamp set low, knife resting across his knee. He had learned long ago that safety never lasted. Any moment, someone or something could appear in the tunnels. But as he listened to the gentle rhythm of Myra and her children sleeping, he felt a quietness inside himself. The kind of quiet he had not known since before the war. When morning came, or what counted as morning on this ruined planet, Myra stirred first. She pushed herself up slowly, her thin body still weak from days of hunger. She looked at Aaron, who was already awake. His eyes were sharp, watching the tunnel, but his face was calm. "You did not sleep," she whispered. Aaron shrugged. "Someone must keep watch." Her eyes lowered, touched by his words. "You guard even those you do not know. Humans are different." Aaron did not answer. He rose, stretching his arms, and checked the supplies again. He gave small portions of food to the children and handed Myra water. Only after they had eaten did he allow himself a few bites. Myra noticed but said nothing. She understood enough to see his choice. When the children finished, Aaron spoke. "This chamber is safe for now, but we cannot stay here forever. We need a better place. Somewhere with more water and an exit to the surface." Myra nodded. "I know paths. My people lived here once, before the war burned everything. I can show you the ways." So they began to travel together. They moved slowly through the tunnels. Aaron led with his lamp, Myra guiding him with quiet directions. The children walked between them, small hands clutching their mother's robes. Sometimes Rin asked soft questions about where they were going. Sometimes Lyra hummed to herself, her voice thin but steady. As they walked, Myra told Aaron about her people. They had built homes beneath the ground long ago, safe from storms on the surface. They had gardens lit by crystals, streams that carried clean water, and storerooms filled with food. But when the war came, soldiers destroyed much of it. The tunnels collapsed in places, and families scattered. Myra had been running since then, trying to keep her children alive. Aaron listened in silence. He rarely shared his own story. His people too had known hunger and loss. Entire colonies had fallen, some never rebuilt. He had been a soldier once, though he no longer wore a uniform. Now he was just a wanderer, moving from place to place, holding on to life with what little he carried. But hearing Myra's story, he felt something stir inside him. Their struggles were different, yet the pain was the same. Loss did not care about species. Hunger did not care about language. Days passed this way. Aaron shared skills with Myra and the children. He showed them how to use stones to sharpen edges, how to set traps for small tunnel creatures, and how to measure time by the steady drip of water. Rin watched closely, eager to learn. Lyra laughed when Aaron made a small flame dance on the tip of a stick, her joy echoing through the tunnels like music. Myra too began to teach. She showed Aaron hidden marks carved into the walls by her people, guiding signs that pointed toward safe paths. She taught him how to listen to the tunnels, the way air moved, the way stone shifted so he could sense danger before it came. When Aaron stumbled once on uneven ground, Myra caught his arm. Their eyes met briefly, and in that glance was trust, simple and wordless. The bond between them grew stronger with each step. Aaron no longer thought only of his own survival. His mind counted not just his water and food, but theirs. Every choice he made, he weighed against the lives of 3 others. And though the weight was heavy, it did not crush him. It gave him purpose. One evening, they found another chamber, larger than the last. A cracked ceiling let faint light from above fall through, touching the floor with pale brightness. In the center lay the remains of an old camp, burned wood, broken pots, and scraps of cloth. Aaron searched carefully. He found a half-broken metal container and cleaned it. He gathered dry roots and started a small fire. The children sat near it, their faces glowing in the light. Myra watched him, her eyes reflecting the flames. "Fire," she said softly. "It feels like home." Aaron nodded. "For humans too. Fire means safety." They sat together by the flame. Ren leaned against his mother, already drifting into sleep. Lyra crawled close to Aaron, her eyes wide. "Will we be safe now?" she asked, her voice small. Aaron looked at her for a long moment before answering. "I cannot promise safety. But I promise I will try." The little girl smiled faintly, her trust shining like the flame itself. Myra's gaze softened. She said nothing, but her silence carried deep meaning. The next days tested that promise. The tunnels grew narrower, forcing them to move slowly. Strange sounds echoed from the dark, clattering noises, low growls, the scrape of unseen claws. Once, a shadow moved quickly across the path ahead. Aaron raised his knife, but it slipped away into silence. Fear touched the children, but Myra held them close, whispering calm words. Aaron stood guard, his lamp steady, his steps sure. Danger lurked, but together they passed through. At last, Myra led them to a hidden cavern. Inside, a spring bubbled from the stone, filling a shallow pool with clear water. Moss grew on the walls, glowing faintly with natural light. The air was cool and fresh. "This place," Myra whispered, her voice filled with memory. "It was part of our gardens. We grew food here once. Now only water remains, but it is enough." Aaron knelt by the spring and filled their flasks. The water was pure, sweet against his tongue. He looked at Myra and nodded. "This can be a home, for now." The children laughed and splashed their hands in the pool. Their voices filled the cavern, bright and alive. Myra's eyes shone as she watched them. For the first time in many days, hope replaced fear. That night, they sat together near the glowing moss. Myra looked at Aaron. "When you first came to us, I thought you would turn away. Many have seen us and walked past. But you stopped. You gave. Why?" Aaron stared at the water for a long time before speaking. "Because I remembered what it felt like. To be hungry. To be forgotten. Someone once gave me food when I had nothing. That memory has never left me." Myra bowed her head slowly. "Then your kindness is not just for us. It is for the one who helped you long ago." Aaron gave a small nod. "Perhaps. But now it is also for you." Their eyes met again, steady and unbroken. No more words were needed. As the days stretched on, the bond deepened. Aaron was no longer only the human wanderer. He became teacher, guardian, and part of their small family. Myra's children began to smile more, their steps stronger with each passing day. Myra herself walked taller, her voice steadier, her hope alive again. In return, Aaron found something he had not sought. He found belonging. He found the strength that came not from surviving alone but from sharing life with others. The galaxy outside remained harsh, full of war and hunger. But inside the tunnels, by the spring and the glowing moss, a human and an alien family built trust, step by step, meal by meal, story by story. And though none of them said it aloud, each one knew the truth. Their bond was no longer about survival alone. It was about something stronger, something that could outlast fear and silence. It was about hope. The cavern by the spring became a fragile home. Aaron repaired cracks in the walls with loose stones, making the place safer. Myra gathered moss to weave into soft bedding for the children. Rin and Lyra laughed often now, their voices echoing against stone. For a short time, peace wrapped around them like a blanket. But peace never lasted long on this broken world. It began with a sound. Aaron was sharpening his knife one evening when he froze. From far down the tunnel came the faint clatter of metal and boots striking stone. His hand tightened on the blade. The sound was steady, marching, not the random scrape of wild creatures. It was a patrol. Myra heard it too. Her face grew pale. She pulled her children close, whispering their names. "They found us," she said in a trembling voice. "It must be the faction soldiers. They take children to use as servants. They take mothers too." If they see us, they will not leave us alive. Aaron rose slowly. His lamp cast a pale glow on his face, showing calm but hard eyes. How many? Myra shook her head. I do not know. But enough. Always armed. Aaron's thoughts raced. He had one knife, 2 ration bars left, and nothing more. Against a patrol, he was outmatched. But leaving Myra and her children was not a choice. He had given them food, water, hope. If he abandoned them now, everything they had built together would break. He turned to Myra. Take Rin and Lyra. Hide them near the back of the cavern. Do not make a sound. Myra hesitated. And you? Aaron met her eyes. I will face them. Her lips parted as if to protest, but his steady gaze stopped her. At last, she nodded and gathered the children, leading them to the shadows. Aaron stood alone by the entrance, knife in hand, breath slow and deep. The footsteps grew louder. Shadows appeared first, stretching across the tunnel wall. Then figures emerged, tall, armored, with harsh faces and weapons in their hands. There were 5 of them. Their leader carried a glowing rod of command, marking his rank. The soldiers stopped when they saw Aaron. Surprise flickered across their faces. A lone human in the tunnels was rare. One soldier raised his weapon, but the leader lifted his hand, signaling him to wait. Human, the leader said in a rough voice. These tunnels are not yours. Step aside. We are searching for fugitives. Aaron's grip on his knife tightened. He stood firm, blocking the way. No fugitives here, he said calmly. The leader narrowed his eyes. Then what do you guard? Aaron did not answer. Silence itself was an answer, and the soldiers understood. The leader's lips curled into a thin smile. Then we will see for ourselves, he said. He motioned to his men to move forward. Aaron stepped closer, knife raised. You will not pass. The soldiers laughed at first. One muttered, just one man. But their laughter faded when they saw he did not move, did not fear. His eyes held steady, like iron. The leader grew impatient. Stand down, human. You cannot stop us. Aaron's voice was low but strong. Maybe not. But you will have to go through me. The soldiers exchanged looks. Then the leader gave a sharp signal. 2 soldiers stepped forward. The fight began. Aaron moved fast. His knife flashed, striking one soldier's arm before the man could raise his weapon. The soldier cried out, stumbling back. The second soldier swung a heavy rod, but Aaron ducked and struck low, his blade cutting across the man's leg. Both soldiers fell, but not dead. Aaron never struck to kill unless forced. The leader snarled. Take him. 2 more soldiers rushed forward. Aaron blocked one strike with his arm, pain jolting through him, but he held firm. He countered with a fierce push, sending the soldier into the wall. The second grabbed him from behind, arms like iron around his chest. Aaron slammed his head back, breaking the hold, and drove his elbow into the man's ribs. Still, he was outnumbered. His breath came hard, his muscles burned, but he fought on. Each movement carried not only his strength but his will, the will of a human who refused to yield. The leader stepped forward at last, rod glowing with sharp light. He struck at Aaron, the blow heavy and fast. Aaron raised his knife to block, but the rod knocked it aside. Pain shot through his hand. The knife clattered to the ground. The leader smiled cruelly. You are finished. Aaron staggered back, but his eyes did not break. He raised his fists instead. His body was bruised, bleeding, but his spirit held strong. He charged forward, striking the leader across the jaw with raw force. The leader fell back in shock, the glowing rod slipping from his hand. For a moment, silence filled the tunnel. The soldiers hesitated, seeing their leader stumble. Aaron bent, grabbed the rod, and held it high. Its glow lit his face with fire. "Leave now," he growled, his voice echoing through the stone. "Or you will see what a human can do." The soldiers stared. They saw not just a man, but a will they could not break. Fear flickered in their eyes. At last, the leader spat to the side, rage in his face, but he gave the order. "Fall back." Slowly, the soldiers retreated, dragging their wounded with them. Their footsteps faded into the dark until only silence remained. Aaron stood breathing hard, blood dripping from his arm. His body ached with every movement, but his grip on the rod stayed firm. From the shadows, Myra appeared, her children clinging to her sides. Her eyes were wide, her lips trembling. "You face them alone," she whispered. Aaron lowered the rod, leaning against the wall to steady himself. "I could not let them take you." Ren rushed forward, his small hands reaching for Aaron's wounded arm. "You are hurt," he said. Aaron gave a faint smile. "I will heal." Myra stepped closer, her voice shaking with emotion. "No one has ever done this for us. You fought when escape was possible. You stayed when death stood before you. Why?" Aaron looked at her, his eyes steady despite his pain. "Because that is what humans do. We fight for those who cannot. We do not run when family is at risk." Myra's face softened, tears shining in her silver eyes. She knelt beside him, her children close. "Then from this day, we are not just in your debt. We are with you, wherever you go. Your fight is our fight." Aaron said nothing, but a quiet warmth filled him. The bond between them, once fragile, had now been forged in fire. Trust was no longer a word but a truth. That night, Myra cleaned his wounds with water from the spring, her hands gentle but steady. Ren and Lyra stayed close, refusing to leave his side. Aaron lay still, letting them tend to him. The ache in his body was sharp, but the strength in his heart was stronger. As he drifted into rest, he heard Myra's voice, soft and firm. "You are not alone anymore, Aaron. Not now. Not ever." And in the darkness of the cavern, a human and an alien family became bound not by chance, but by choice. Tested by danger, strengthened by sacrifice, their bond had become unbreakable. The smoke from the battle had faded, and the broken ground lay silent. Tom sat on a flat rock, his arm wrapped in makeshift bandages. The wounds burned, but he ignored them. Around him, Myra's people moved slowly, gathering fallen debris, pulling damaged shelters upright, and tending to the injured. The children who had once starved now clung to life with renewed strength, their small voices filling the air like a gentle song. Myra approached Tom, her steps steady though her body carried exhaustion. She carried a bowl of water and offered it to him. He accepted it with a quiet nod and drank. Her eyes did not leave his face, and in her gaze was a mixture of awe, respect, and something deeper that words could not fully capture. "You stood for us when we could not," she said softly. "You gave food when we were starving. You gave courage when we only knew fear. I swore I would be yours forever if you saved my children, but you gave us more than life. You gave us hope." Tom shook his head slowly. I did what anyone should do. Children should never starve. No family should be left to die. I could not walk away. Myra lowered herself to sit near him. For a long moment, the two remained silent. The survivors around them moved with renewed energy. They were no longer only hiding from the enemy. They were rebuilding because someone had shown them it was possible. Rebuilding trust. Days passed, and the survivors began to repair their broken village. With Tom's guidance, they built stronger shelters using stone and steel fragments from the wrecked city. He showed them how to purify water using filters from his ship and how to create safe storage for food. Myra's children watched him closely, sometimes following him step by step, their laughter returning after weeks of hunger and silence. At night, the people would gather around small fires. Tom shared stories of humanity, of ancient struggles on Earth when people had to fight storms, hunger, and wars but never gave up. Myra listened closely. Her people were not used to hearing tales of endurance. To them, Tom's words were like light in darkness. One evening, Myra asked him, "Is this what all humans are like? Do they fight for others who are not their own?" Tom smiled faintly. "Not all. But humanity has a way of seeing family beyond blood. We learned long ago that survival comes when you protect not just yourself but those beside you. Alone, we are weak. Together, we are strong." Myra bowed her head slightly. "Then you are not only strong. You are wise." A promise renewed. Weeks turned into months. The enemy that once terrorized Myra's people did not return, fearing the traps and resistance Tom had taught. The survivors grew braver. They learned how to patrol their borders, how to share food fairly, and how to heal wounds with herbs Tom had helped them discover. Myra often walked with Tom through the rebuilt village. Each time the children ran to him, she felt her heart tighten with gratitude. She remembered the day she had begged him with trembling voice to feed her starving children. That moment had bound her life to his. One night, under a sky filled with strange stars, she stood before him. "I gave you my vow, Tom. I said I would be yours forever if you saved my children. That vow still stands. My people live because of you. My heart belongs to you not by promise alone but by choice. You gave us back tomorrow." Tom looked at her with quiet kindness. "Myra, I never wanted a servant or someone bound to me by desperation. I wanted you and your people to live because life is precious. If you choose to walk beside me, let it be as a partner, not as a debtor. I want no chains between us." Her eyes shone in the firelight. "Then I will walk beside you. Not because I must, but because I wish to." The bond of two peoples. As seasons changed, the village transformed. Crops grew in carefully dug fields. Water channels carried fresh streams through the settlement. Children learned both their own traditions and the ways Tom shared. Songs of survival mixed with laughter that had once been lost. Tom's presence was no longer seen as strange. He became part of the community. Myra's children called him uncle, and her people called him guardian. When traders from distant lands arrived, they spoke in whispers of the human who had turned despair into strength. One trader asked Myra, "Why do your people follow this man of another world?" Myra's answer was simple. "Because when we were dying, he fed our children. When we were hunted, he stood with us. In his actions, we saw not a foreigner but a brother." The words spread. Soon, other survivors from distant ruins came, hoping to learn from the human. Tom did not turn them away. He shared what he knew, teaching them how to defend themselves and how to rebuild. Humanity's spirit began to weave itself into Myra's people. Legacy of kindness. Years later, when Tom's hair turned gray and his steps grew slower, Myra's people had grown strong. Their villages stretched beyond the valley, filled with children who no longer feared hunger. On the walls of their homes, carvings told the story of the human who came from the sky and fed starving children. Tom stood at the edge of the fields one evening, watching the sun sink. Myra joined him, her children now grown and leading their own families. She placed her hand gently over his. "Your kindness became the seed of our survival," she said. "Our children will never forget your name. You are not only human. You are part of us now." Tom's eyes softened. "That is all I could hope for. Not to be remembered as a hero, but as someone who cared." Myra smiled. "Then you will be remembered as both." Closing as night fell, the fires in the village glowed like stars upon the earth. Children laughed, families shared meals, and the air carried songs of joy instead of cries of hunger. Myra's people had a future again, and it had begun with a single act of humanity. The bond between human and alien mother, born from a plea for food, had grown into a legacy of unity. It was proof that compassion could cross worlds, and that sometimes, one man feeding starving children could change the destiny of an entire people. And so, the story of Tom and Myra became more than memory. It became a light for generations, showing that humanity was not just strong in battle, but strongest in kindness.